Hey, it's Soul, and this is the cinematic breakdown of Ardenweald, the third of the four-part Afterlives series. And to be perfectly candid, this cinematic broke me down at a personal level, which makes this my least and my most favorite cinematic to date. I hope that this breakdown sells the idea that these cinematics are so much more than, ooh, that's a cool moment, or ooh, let's analyze this double spirit thing, or, whoa, she's a badass. It's so much more than that, but let's get started. We begin with an ending, a corrupted Ursoc, the bear god and one of the first denizens of Azeroth, getting all thrashy and violent until he's finally put down by the champions of Azeroth. Malfurion kneels over his friend for a moment of comfort as Ursoc speaks his last words. I return at last to the long slumber, to the great forest beyond, until I may serve the wilds again. Ursoc is familiar with the cycle, I guess. He's gone through it a number of times himself, and off he goes to Ardenweald, a seemingly happy spirit that went on a journey on Azeroth and now has returned home to rest. He's greeted by Erelon, a keeper, as he eventually is absorbed into a bulb of sorts, to rest for however long it takes before he can return to Azeroth. So this is Ardenweald, where nature spirits from all over the Great Dark Beyond seem to return and are tended to by keepers like Arlon. The spirits appear to be helpless on their own, and rely on these keepers to, keep. To feed them, to protect them from who knows what, and then to ensure that they're off on their merry way. Erelon is gifted a brief visit from the Winter Queen, to whom he quickly repeats his pledge to protect those under his charge. The Queen looks so proud as she's listening to Erelon and the work of the realm, and without a word, the Winter Queen scurries off, probably to inflict the same wordless motivation to countless other keepers. But time passes, and all is not well at all. The reasons elude him, but Erelon recounts the anima drought that has lasted for seasons. This is but one small example of how time might flow slightly differently in the Shadowlands, even if this might not be translated very accurately in-game. Everything in Erelon's grove is dead or dying, save for this tiny little Ursoc baby who hasn't grown. He gives Ursoc what little he's got, and in a repeat of the earlier sequence, he returns to a familiar spot to pick a bulb of anima that tragically disappears before his eyes. Erelon breathes despair before a voice catches his ear. "It must be done," the voice says. "Reclaim everything from this grove." And hovering over one of the few remaining bulbs, massive centaur-like humanoids are draining what little anima remains. Erelon activates the more violent half of his keeper self, all in defense of his grove, swinging and slashing at his attackers, just about as enraged as Ursoc during his final moments on Azeroth. "Anyone who threatens my grove is my enemy," Erelon snarls, despite the protests of the intruders. "I swore an oath." On cue, the Winter Queen appears behind him, just as before, but this time under very different circumstances. She casts a shadow over Erelon with what looks like the heart of the forest behind her, just like Uther in front of Arthas, just like Draka before her assassins, just like Erelon before his grove. Erelon questions these actions because the work and faith that he put in is being answered by these so-called scavengers. The Winter Queen stares down with an almost unfeeling gaze, but it's more than that. She's presenting to Erelon a vision of what's to come. Ardenweald at the verge of collapse, the heart of the forest crumbling under its own weight. Ardenweald is dying, he finally admits, accepting this vision as truth. He's told what's happening. The Wild Hunt is being invoked, meaning some groves would be sacrificed for the sake of saving anima for others. Erelon is asked, "Will you sacrifice one soul for the forest entire, or will you keep your oath?" Silence, and tiny Ursoc is the sacrifice in question, who's just sleeping, waiting for the day when he can return in service. The Winter Queen, who had her back to the light, now reveals herself in it. Tears in her gaze, she's in extreme pain for her forest, and for her keeper, to whom she's giving an impossible choice. She finally speaks. "Your heart is pure. I will honor your choice." It takes 15 agonizingly long seconds before Erelon finally speaks up. "One last time to serve the wilds," Erelon says. It's like an answer to Ursoc at the very beginning. He will serve the wilds again, as a sacrifice to save it. You will not be forgotten, Erelon says. Forgive me, friend. Ursoc lets out one last purr before his light fades away, and after a brief moment, Erelon turns away from his friend. The Winter Queen gives one last tear-filled look, probably one she's given numerous times before this, probably not the last, before she too walks away, along with the rest of the wild hunt. Erelon declares that he'll continue to hunt for the souls that they can still save. This is the most difficult analysis I've ever written because of the very human, very personal parallels that I share with this cinematic. But before that, this is another world-building cinematic, something to set the stage for Shadowlands, one that gets to the immediate plot of Shadowlands 9.0, the Anima Drought. What we're seeing is a demonstration of where things are right, and then the consequences of what's gone wrong. Not just at the, hey, the world is ending sort of level, but on the effects of a single person, the status quo, the way things normally are. Ardenweald seems different from the rest of the Shadowlands because unlike humanoids like Adraka and Uther, the souls of the wild gods at least appear to travel straight to Ardenweald. We haven't heard of Loa being turned into Kyrians, for example, but there's gotta be some function in the Ardenweald to the mortal realm loop that has yet to be explained. In Ardenweald, anima grows not unlike fruit to be plucked and then put to use in recultivating the spirits it's trying to restore. I'm willing to wager that Ardenweald is a user rather than a producer of anima, and anima runs through Ardenweald and all the realms of the Shadowlands, not unlike an irrigation system. Of course, something has disrupted that system. All souls are being flung into the maw, and anima flow has ground almost to a halt. I don't blame anyone for not liking this cinematic as much as Bastion or Maldraxxus. Not enough cool moments, not enough whoa. But this one tugged at the heartstrings in a way that only connects with certain people in certain ways, like me. So get ready for a sad story. A few years ago, I had to make the impossible decision and let my dog go. He was sick, and I had to decide whether to let him go in pain or to say goodbye. So when I saw the happy bear nestling into its bulb thing, thinking, yay, I'm just gonna go rest for a while and I'll be back good as new, I saw my dog. I saw myself in Erelon when things seemed routine until it wasn't. I felt that pain and helplessness and how he tried to do everything that he could, but it was all crumbling around before him. And when he was given a choice that only he can make, I went back to that moment, seeing my buddy on the table, trying to hang on when he wasn't. I looked at the Winter Queen and I could hear my conscience telling me that I can choose one way or another, but only one was truly right. I know every one of those agonizing seconds before finally telling the doctor to go ahead. And I had to see the light fade into nothing. And I had to eventually turn away and let my best friend turn into a memory. So good job, Blizzard team. You delivered in the best and the worst way possible. But like I said, it gave me a kind of perspective that I totally understand if you don't see yourselves. Like, come on, it's a old Legion boss that you farmed, who cares? That's cool. What Ardenweald reveals to me are the consequences of the original crime, the breaking of the Shadowlands. Yeah, I know the jailer has some grand plan to unmake everything, blah blah undeath, but this moment was so real and it connects to me so directly that it just blows the other two cinematics away. Ardenweald is something that's going to stick to me for years and years. Draka's story comes off as tragic, but fortunately I didn't die protecting my infant. And Uther displays this deep and realistic internal pain in his story, but throwing your student into hell, or, some other realistic comparison, that hasn't happened to me either. Ardenweald is the most grounded of the stories in Afterlives so far, and it's also straightforward. We get a hint of why we as champions of Azeroth are there, beyond finding Sylvanas and putting her head on a stick. But questions remain, like why does Ardenweald work to restore spirits and send them back while the rest of the Shadowlands seems to be a machine to sustain its own existence? Did the Kyrian pick up the likes of Ursoc and Ysera and take them to Oribos first? We'll have to wait until at least the Revendreth cinematic or when Shadowlands goes live, but we're just scratching the surface of Shadowlands lore. So thanks for watching, sorry for getting a little bit emotional there. I would love it if you were to like the video if you enjoyed yourself, and to stay tuned for the Revendreth episode next week. And of course, subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. We'll see you next time. Until then, stay safe, stay healthy, and stay breezy.